Hi, I'm Doug Draper with Acme Distribution and the Denver Transportation Club, and I'm pleased to present our series, Supply Chain Logistics, the Storytellers. This series is brought to you by Cap Logistics. Cap Logistics are experts offering you customized transportation solutions for every need. So please visit caplogistics.com today. All right, so today's topic is related to trucking across America, and we're pleased to have Chris Spear, who is involved with the American Trucking Associations. He's actually the president of the group, and he's joining us out from Washington, D.C. So, Chris, thank you so much for participating on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Doug.
Absolutely. So before we jump into some of our topics, let's talk about yourself. So give the audience a little background of yourself and kind of how you got into your current role.
Well, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be the ninth president and CEO of the American Trucking Associations. We're an 85-year-old association representing 50 state associations. Mm-hmm. So we really feel like we have our finger on the pulse of transportation-related matters, as it certainly relates to trucking, and working those issues on behalf of our states and members here in Washington at the national level. I came to this job with a background in government affairs. I worked on Capitol Hill for 8 years. I worked in George W. Bush administration as a Senate confirmed appointee and working at the Department of Labor. I also worked at the Pentagon and did some overseas work as well. And, I'd never really tried my hand at association work. After leaving government, I was in corporate for some time, working for Honeywell International here in the U.S. and abroad, and have had P&L and familiar with the cash flow statement, know how to make a quarter, and I've always enjoyed the pressures that come to those that run a business, and that familiarity with it, and combined with the government side, the element of association work appealed to me. So that's how I ended up at ATA, and I've had some transportation background over those years, both government and private. So it's really been a wonderful opportunity to apply it forward and to represent ATA and its members.
That's terrific. Yeah, you have kind of the street smarts approach with your experience with Honeywell, so I can appreciate that. Now, one question that I had is it's American Trucking Associations that's plural, and I think you may have answered the question, but can you explain, initially when you and I met, I just referred to it as singular, but it's actually plural, and is that because you represent all states? Is that where that name comes from?
It is, and you're not the first one to reference it as singular. It is plural. It's always been that way since 1933, and it's a group of 50 state associations that make up the plural nature of our title, and it gives us tremendous reach and depth, not just in terms of understanding state perspectives, but advocating here in Washington, D.C., our ability to touch every senator, every House member. Not only do we have the state associations voice as a resource, but all the members within the state association and the federation. So our ability to really turn the volume to 11 is enhanced by the makeup of the association's network, which is really an advantage, I think, for our ability to get things done. So we like the S at the end of our title. It's a good thing.
Nice. Good. Well, thanks for clarifying that. So let's kind of jump into it here at the beginning part of the year. So talk about some industry trends, I think, that in 2009 that you're seeing that's impacting the industry, and then we'll follow up with kind of what the ATA is advocating to doing, for the benefit of that of the association. So let's just start with 2 or 3 trends that you're seeing that's going to impact the industry here in 2019.
Oh, certainly, and I'd qualify that a little further, Doug. It's not really what we want; it's what we can get, and we're working in an environment that's, as I think many know, certainly people that watch the news know, is a very politically polluted environment here in Washington, and the level of complacency in moving big ticket items is adversely impacted. So we try to really work with Congress and the administration, understand what their priorities are, and certainly how they align with trucking. And interestingly enough, 2019 appears to be a year that we could see a lot of movement on Tier 1 issues that ATA is advocating. There are three on the Hill that come immediately to mind, and that's first led by infrastructure. The president campaigned heavily on this issue, and we're having this debate largely because he made it so. Now advocating a $1.5 trillion 10-year bill. That's music to trucking's ears. We certainly believe in investing in roads and bridges. It's our backyard. That's where we play and make a living, and having good roads and bridges that minimize the exposure to repairs and certainly enhance safety, more importantly, are things that we believe are good returns on investment. We pay half the tab into the Highway Trust Fund. We're willing to pay more to the tune of 20 cents on a gallon. And we believe the user fee is the most conservative way, less than 1 cent on the dollar to administer it. It shores up the trust fund, which goes broke next year, the Highway Trust Fund, and it doesn't have it a dime to the deficit. So we believe this is the best way to fund, immediate infrastructure projects. And we're going to be testifying in the coming weeks, both in the House and Senate, to really underscore these policies and really help Congress and the administration shape a very robust infrastructure bill. We also see trade really unfolding with the agreement reach on the replacement for NAFTA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, USMCA, will be voted on in the Congress this year. And we believe that deadlines for negotiations with China and Europe that will certainly, we hope, be fruitful and relieve our members and the economy of the tariffs, particularly on steel and aluminum. Our truck and trailer manufacturers certainly feeling the pain there. Yeah. So we're hoping these negotiations bear fruit, and we believe this year could be a banner year for trade agreements. And then thirdly, the workforce development initiatives, more broadly than just the Hill, but we do see some activity in terms of streamlining the process, certainly working with job training initiatives, hiring of veterans, working with our aging populace of drivers and mechanics, and really targeting youth, really bringing in new talent and making trucking cool. We really want to show that the innovation and the technology that's going into our industry could be an attractive, well-paying space for up-and-comers that perhaps don't want or need a college degree and the debt that goes with it. So those three issues, I think, are going to be front and center. And then on the agency side, separate from that, hours of service, a new proposed rulemaking on hours of service changes, we do expect to see that hit the street in the coming weeks. So on the federal level, we believe we'll be pretty busy. And then if not, we'll be working with our states on things like tolling and independent contractors and other issues that they're facing at the more state and local level.
Gotcha. I'm going to go through a couple of these, the 3 points and a few comments that really jumped out at me. One, the infrastructure. I'm glad that is on the forefront. Hit a pothole this morning driving in, and I'm not even using that for radio language. It really happened. So that's terrific. One thing that you made mention was the user fee in 20 cents. So talk a little bit more. Anytime the ears perk up, like, okay, does that mean my gas is going up by 20 cents? So elaborate a little bit. I don't know if that's the case or not. So can you elaborate on what you mean with user fee and 20 cents? Those are the two things that caught my attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll really make sense to listeners when they understand that the federal fuel tax has not gone up since 1993. But whatever else we're paying for, whether it's food, drink, or the clothes we wear, we've certainly seen increases in every cost of any good and service over those couple decades. So we believe it's long overdue, and the only reason it hasn't been raised is because Congress doesn't have the courage to step up and do its job. You and I go to work every day. We obviously expect our elected officials to do the same and not keep punting these difficult questions. Infrastructure is not free, and it's not cheap. Well, we believe that the 20 cents on the gallon, it's 5 cents a year, okay, over 4 years. That's going to raise $340 billion with a B,
Wow.
$billion over 10 years. That's real money. It's immediate because the structure and the administrative apparatus are already in place to administer the money. So you're going to see immediate improvements to roads and bridges, and hopefully including that pothole that you hit this morning.
Right.
So we believe that this is the most conservative way to fund infrastructure. And over the next 10 years, raise real money and put it on the table to get this bill done.
Yeah.
Now, just to put it into context, I-66 is a 10-mile stretch of it that goes from the Capitol Beltway to D.C. It runs right by my office. I'm staring at it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this stretch of 10 miles went to congestion pricing last year. Okay, so basically when you get on at the Beltway and you're headed to D.C., the peak costs for driving that 10-mile stretch one day, one way, $47.50.
For 10 miles?
For 10 miles.
Oh, my goodness.
For 10 miles. If you adopted our proposal, 20 cents on a gallon, that's going to average out to about $120 a year. So that same driver on 66 that's paying $47.50 to go one day, one way on that road, paying $120, it's got about $2 a week on average for all roads and bridges, not just I-66, all roads and bridges in the U.S. So, you look at that, and you got to say, Congress, come on. I mean, if you can't sell that at home to your constituencies, you're probably in the wrong job.
Right.
We probably need to show you the door.
Right.
So this is really a long overdue proposal. We believe it's common sense. And anybody that breaks down those numbers, $2 more a week for all roads and bridges, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, your perspective is spot on. So this leads me to my next question, and you may see this right now when you look out your window, but talk about user fees and electric vehicles, right? I know that autonomous trucks, and that may be still a little ways out, but the gentleman that's driving or the woman that's driving in their truck and they don't have gas in their vehicle, how does that impact on the user fee with the 20 cents?
Well, they're not currently captured, obviously. They don't fill at the pump. Now, the number of vehicles on the road that are alternative fuels, such as electric, are so minuscule right now that they really aren't having a tremendous impact, a measurable impact on the amount of money that we would need to raise. However, the reality is that those alternative fuel vehicles are going to be very prevalent. The growth rate, particularly of electricity fueling vehicles, is going to continue to grow, and it will do so over the next 10, 15 years.
Right.
So when we say the user fee is the most conservative way to raise immediate funding for roads and bridges, that's true for the next 10 years. Beyond that, we need to be looking at alternative fuel vehicles and ways to capture that use and revenue. Right now, we're advocating registration fees for electric vehicles. So if you buy an electric powered vehicle, when you go to register at the DMV, you pay a fee that would capture what you would normally pay if you were using petrol or diesel. So we feel that that's the fair way to do it. Everybody should pay.
Sure.
The user paid model, and that's what makes it fair. And it's not targeting people that don't use roads and bridges, but we do believe anybody that drives on them with a vehicle needs to be contributing.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And I think it's great that the delivery mechanism of the extra 20 cents is already there. It's not like we have to create a way to distribute the money to fix the roads. It's already there. You're just bumping up the tax level, so that's terrific. The other, I'm going to shift gears and talk about the other number two, kind of what you spoke about, was the USMCA. In your experience, whether on the private sector or through American Trucking Associations, have you ever seen international trade and negotiations on an international level be so impactful to the trucking industry here in the U.S.? That question makes sense?
Well, it's an evolution. I mean, 1993 was the birth of NAFTA. It's the oldest of our roughly 24 agreements that are on the books from around the world. It's certainly outdated. There's no question that it needed to be improved and reflected of modern economics. But over the course since 1993, trucking has stepped up, and now today, over that course of time, moves 76% of the NAFTA service freight, 81% of the border crossings with Mexico, 72% with Canada are moved by truck. So there really isn't anything in these three countries that doesn't happen without trucking. Mm-hmm. And the same is, quite frankly, true with Europe and with Asia Pacific. When those boxes hit those ports, the intermodal elements, trucking is very instrumental. A lot of that's moved by rail, but, there's also a lot of it that to and from the rail has to be moved by trucks. So even the last mile is certainly relevant. We are now in total, as an industry, moving 71% of the domestic freight in the United States. So trade and trucking, we believe, are synonymous. There's no daylight in between those two.
Yeah. As far as the regulatory, the rules and regulations going into and out of Mexico, crossing the border and the paperwork and the time involved with that, do you see that those barriers dropping both into Mexico and Canada? I know you have to stop, and in Mexico sometimes you have to transload the freight, and certain Mexican trucking companies can come all the way into the U.S. So what do you think is going to happen with that as the USMCA develops?
Well, we hope there's improvements, and streamlining is always welcome. But, I think you're referring more to drayage and the time it takes to move over the border itself. A lot of that freight's then shifted to U.S. and Mexican fleets that then take it beyond that zone. But you're looking for everything from USDA inspections for food, insects, all sorts of things that they look for in terms of food safety, to nuclear screening. Certainly biochemical, that's all screened by DHS. And you also have FMCSA there looking for the safety of the vehicles that are being used to transport the freight over the border. So, there's a whole host of elements that are absolutely mission critical that take time, and they do cause delays and backup. I've been down to the border several times. Laredo specifically is one of the largest crossings, 14,000 a day. It's just unbelievable to see that with your own eyes and understand the impact that trade has, and the importance of trucking is instrumental in making those trade agreements function properly. But you can't dismiss the importance of these inspections, and they do cause delays because of the time to do it properly.
Yeah,
we hope that's streamlined, but I don't want to undermine the importance of those issues.
Yeah, supply chain security is definitely paramount nowadays, not only with the physical movement of the goods, but the technology and the data that flows with that. So agreed 100%.
Yep.
Let's get those borders open, but still have that security integrity. So I think that's spot on. One of the questions that I was going to reach out to you, which you already covered, which was the third point that you'd mentioned, was workforce development. And my question was simply, what's your take on the driver shortage? But I think yours is a little bit more eloquent to talk about what we're doing. I think you had mentioned making trucking cool again. So expand a little bit about what's going on there with the ATA and how we're going to address the imminent driver shortage that's happening right now.
Well, I think having the right structure and policy framework in place is part of our responsibility. It's not to report the news, it's to make the news. And if we're going to really address the shortage and our workforce challenges 5, 10, 15 years from now, including autonomous tech, we've got to be positioned to advocate policies that will help us grow over that time, not be reactive day to day. We have that structure, we have the committee, we have the platform, we've been advocating on the Hill and the agencies a number of changes. With regards to youth, that's one of them, 18 to 21-year-olds. 18-year-olds can drive a Class 8 truck in 48 states. They just can't cross state lines. Now, that works pretty well in Colorado. Doesn't work very well in states like Rhode Island.
Right.
So, here's the deal. We look at this as an issue of training, an issue of investing in our youngest talent, and to have the opportunity to bring them into this industry at an earlier age, train them properly. The policies that we're advocating are 400 hours of apprenticeship-based training, of which 240 hours you have to have an experienced driver in the cab with the 18-year-old.
Okay.
We have to have cameras, mitigation control systems, speed governors. This is all required to participate in this program, but you're allowed to then cross state lines by training this talented young person properly. We believe is going to go a long way to ensuring proper safety, but that we're having an opportunity to bring younger talent into our industry at the earliest stage possible. Now, you look at the military. I'm an Army dad. Mm-hmm. I've got I got a son who's contracted with the Army. He's 2 years in, and I've got a daughter that's going to be attending West Point starting this summer. Now, I don't lose much sleep at all over either one of them going off to fight, for our freedom. because I know that both of them are going to be properly trained.
Right.
And the average age in our military is 19. So, you got to look at that. If we're willing to let, our youth go off and protect and fight for our freedom, I think we can probably train them to cross state lines in a Class 8 truck.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to put it. I think that's exactly correct. As far as the training and the workforce development, do you think that's happening more on a national level, or do you think it's more impactful from the 50 associations, so like, say, the Colorado Motor Carriers Association? Are they more involved with doing the workforce development, or is the ATA developing kind of an overlying umbrella to help promote? Tell me about that.
I think it's hand in glove. We've got to work with our states and localities, including DMVs, to really streamline the process, get people CDLs quicker. Some states it takes 2 months to get a CDL. That's just crazy. I mean, nobody's going to sit around waiting 2 months. They've got to put food on the table. So, at the most local level, that's relevant. Certainly at the states, there are federal policies and funding streams that we're advocating here with Congress and the agencies. So I think it's a grouping of everybody, federal, state, local, to make this happen. And we really need to have a common vision for how we want it to look going forward. None of these fixes are going to hit the street immediately. They're going to take time to evolve. But I do believe, having access to broad talent, whether they be youth, whether they be veterans, exiting service people from the military that have those skills, or really, working to improve the health of our aging workforce as they get older. Obviously, good health benefits, ensuring that they're well cared for and can continue working as long as they want to. These are all things that I think will expand our ability to move freight in the United States going forward. So those steps, I think, are really important, that we need to do them hand in glove with all levels of government.
Yeah, excellent. So we got a couple minutes left. So you talked about wants and gets. Those were a couple of words that I mentioned. I said, what does the ATA want? And you said it's not about wanting, it's what we can get. So maybe pick 2 gets, if you will. I put that in air quotes, that you're striving to obtain in 2019.
Well, I think certainly we'll be advocating heavily on infrastructure, testifying, really driving that hopefully toward a vote and passage. Good roads, good safety, everything that benefits from infrastructure. I think that's a wonderful investment. Certainly workforce development, not just in 19, but beyond. I do envision that being, a long-term issue that we've got to stay at, not just 1 year, but many. Clearly, the trade agreements, I think, getting done this year. Those are 2 or 3 that I would say are going to be our gets this year. And it's good to have goals. It's good to put wins on the board. I think our members expect it. This isn't a country club. We want people to belong here because they believe in the mission and what we're doing to shape our industry's future. And by doing that, we're obviously employing a lot of people, 7.5 million. 1 in 16 jobs is trucking related in the United States.
Yeah.
And the top job in 29 states is a truck driver. So, we're really proud of that. We want it to continue. And getting issues like this done, I think, are going to help, create a long-term path for our industry to grow.
Yeah. That's terrific. Well, I love the terminology you've used in the sense that let's just get out and get it done. I was rolling my sleeves up a little bit while we're talking here because there's not a lot of fluff in what you want to get. I mean, let's go out and get some stuff done. We got a driver shortage. We need infrastructure, and I love the mindset that you have of let's quit talking about it and let's do something. So, just like in the last 20 seconds or so here, what would be one thing that keeps you up at night in your day-to-day job?
I think our elected government, particularly here in Washington, the complacency. It's a threat. It's a threat to our way of life, not just in terms of being a shining star as a democracy, but as far as national security, I think the longer Congress fights amongst itself and puts off important decisions that help our country grow and be competitive, be the leader, the number one leader economically, and certainly as a strategic and national security leader, the infighting really keeps me up at night. I really do worry about it. I think a lot of Americans should be concerned and start taking a hard look at your elected officials. It used to be, it's not me, it's the Congress. Well, no, it's everybody. including everyone's congressman and senator. And we need to start sending people that actually commit to getting things done. Like I said, we go to work every day. I expect them to do the same thing. And holding them accountable, I think, is really a growing responsibility of the American people and associations like ours. And
Right.
you can rest assured we're gonna keep our thumb on it and make certain that they're taking the hard votes.
Nice. Well, you're the right man for the job, and I really appreciate you advocating for our industry. Makes me feel great up there. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today. It's been the Storytellers. It's been brought to you by Cap Logistics. Again, Chris, thank you so much, and have a great winter.
Thanks, Doug. Take care.
All right, take care.